Welcome, everybody. This is Internet Marketing Unleashed. I'm your host, Scott Patton, the Dean of Blogonomics and Podology. Happy to have you here with us today. I'm so excited. I have a very, very special guest. He's an amazing, amazing person. I'm in Medellin. He's in Medellin, Colombia. He's in Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. And he's happy to be where he is. I'm happy to be where I am. And we've been running around the world for the last few years and have settled down almost, well, we've settled down because we've had no choice, to be quite honest. But so everybody, welcome my wonderful friend, Robert Crook. How are you doing, Robert?
Hey, Scott. Not bad at all. I don't feel stuck. I'm happy to be here, so no complaints on my end.
Same here. I'm happy where I am. I have my hammock. I have my sunshine.
Lovely.
And we have food and we're healthy, so that's the important thing.
Must have fast Wi-Fi too, because we're video streaming right now.
Yeah, we're video streaming and it's great. And one of the things I love about Medellin is the Wi-Fi is good, and of course Canada, pretty much everywhere it's fine. Yeah. So that's really good. And I tell you, there's nothing more nerve-wracking than getting on and seeing that everything is freezing as you thought. and the screen goes blank and all sorts of terrible things happen, and it's just like, oh, what a mess this is. But that's part of life, and particularly when we want to travel around. So there's a few things I want to touch on today. One is, what you see is the future of traveling and digital nomadism, and then freelancing or side hustles, as some people want to call them. I think one of the things that this whole coronavirus catastrophe should have taught everybody is you need a side hustle, or you need, a side hustle, I guess is the word, but you need more than one stream of income in case whatever it is you're doing. If you were a barber for the last 4 months or 5 months, you've pretty much been starving. So you need to have other skills, and freelancing skills are excellent, I think. In those types of skills are great because you have a lot of control over your time. You don't usually have to be somewhere at 9 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. You can sort of set your own time. And I think we all have a lot more time than we realize. If we stop binging on Netflix, we'd probably be shocked at what we could do and learn.
Absolutely.
And of course, the last topic I want to make sure we cover is on your t-shirt. And
Upwork.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about Upwork, because that's an area that I think that you're starting. If you weren't before, I'm noticing you're talking a lot about helping people start up their freelance businesses, and Upwork, of course, is a great place to begin. So first of all, for those that don't know, what is Upwork?
Sure. So Upwork is the world's largest remote work platform at the moment. And so that's different than a remote job board. So we've probably seen these remote job boards before. Maybe some of the people listening have anyways, like Monster and Indeed. And these are these places where they're kind of just listing, could be regular jobs in person or online jobs, remote jobs as well, but they're kind of in one spot. And it's kind of like a more traditional way of people getting hired, but you find it on these job board websites. But remote work platforms like Upwork are a little bit different. They're like Airbnb and Uber. So Uber, everyone knows, it kind of connects drivers with passengers, and Airbnb connects properties with renters. And remote work platforms connect businesses with freelancers. And so what all of these kind of platforms have in common is that they make it really easy, user-friendly to kind of connect these kind of two parties together. They facilitate the communication and the payments. And so business owner is going to go on Upwork and say, hey, I need help building a website. I need help designing a poster. I need someone to schedule appointments for me. I need someone to research something on the internet for me. They'll post what they need help with. And then people like myself, maybe yourself, or anyone who's capable of doing the thing that business needs help with can then say, hey, here's why I'm a great fit to help you out. Here's how much it's going to cost to work together. And remote work platforms like Upwork allow you to have that conversation and then actually pay each other, get paid, And yeah, that's a pretty good summary, I think, right? Oh, so the sound has just turned off there, Scott. Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I mute myself when someone else is talking so that we don't. Anyway, yeah. I'm back.
He's back. I'm glad you're back. I missed you.
I think it's amazing all the different types of tasks that can be done by people who are on whose profiles are up on Upwork. It's really
sure.
I think you hit it, when the Airbnb and the Uber examples I think are really good, because there is also, I know with Uber there's a little bit of negotiation going on in terms of how much is the drive going to be. I notice there's some difference between drivers and of course on Upwork there's also differences between the amount that different people are charging for the tasks, and of course you don't know, and the most expensive guy isn't always the best guy, and the cheapest guy isn't always is sometimes the most expensive guy, so you have to be careful. But what is it that drew you to Upwork?
Yeah, well, good question. So almost more than 4 years ago, I had quit my job, sold my things, left from London, Ontario, Canada to Bangkok, Thailand on a one-way flight, and kind of tried to start my digital nomad adventure, working remotely and traveling basically. And that was going pretty good. I had some freelance work, doing digital marketing work from people I grew up with in London, Ontario, business owners I knew and whatnot. But a few months into my travels, I was in Bali in Indonesia, and that work had kind of dried up. And so I had to either find a way to earn some money remotely or basically go home to my parents' place, and that didn't seem very fun. And so there's obviously many ways people are talking about earning money online, drop shipping, affiliate marketing, Amazon FBA, remote work platforms, and Upwork was one of them. And I thought it was interesting because I could see on the platform, with my own eyes, and anyone who's listening, you can do this too. You can go look at any freelancer's profile and see what they've listed their hourly rate as, what kind of skills they're providing, how much work they've gotten, how much money they've earned. So you can see if it's working, and you can see who it's working for, what they're doing. And so I did that and saw, oh, wow, lots of other people doing the exact same kind of work that I already can do, earning a good wage. Why can't I do this too? And so started looking into it. And also, maybe even some people listening, we hear all these things, especially with Upwork. It gets a little bit of a bad rap where people say, it doesn't work. You can't get well-paid work. There's too many people from certain low-paid countries I'm competing with. And so I heard a lot of noise about it doesn't really work. But then again, I could see with my own eyes it was definitely working for a lot of people. And
right.
So I really
they wouldn't be there if they
weren't
making money.
Exactly, right? So there was something there for me to kind of latch onto. And I'm pretty obsessive in some ways, and this is one of those ways. I love reading Amazon reviews, and I wanted to get to the bottom of this mystery. And it wasn't much of a mystery. While there are some subtleties to it, you might have guessed, well, there is something very different between the people who says it doesn't work, how are they using the platform, versus the top performers on the platform in each different niche. How they're using the platform is very, very different. And so the more I looked at these top performers, the more I noticed kind of consistent trends. The way that they uploaded their profile picture, the way they filled in their description, the way they included all of the information about themselves was quite different. And it was something actually replicable. So then I, after several hours of research, kind of applied what I thought was working, got onto Upwork, and surprisingly to me at the time, started earning a lot more money than I was before, doing the same work and earning clients consistently. And it was all remote. So then that actually funded my travels for more than 3 years, pretty much.
Excellent. And so I showed everybody a little bit of, did a search on Upwork, found someone, and it's really easy and to get around. It's intuitive. I can imagine that you could spend weeks and months looking at all the different things, trying to decide who you want to pick and who you want to have work with you.
Sure.
Because there's so much. So if someone is looking to hire somebody and they're thinking, oh, let's go into Upwork, what are some of the things that you would suggest they look at in terms of someone's profile in order to decide this is the right fit for me?
Yeah. So I think there's kind of three key things you can do. So if you're someone who's posting a job, when you go to post that job, Upwork's going to give you some abilities to kind of filter who applies. And so you're going to want to use the filters where it's something like, job success score 90% and above. They've earned more than $10,000. Native English speakers, that can be a pretty big one. If you're doing kind of complex work that requires a lot of critical thinking, then language barriers can potentially be a huge hiccup. And so working with a native English speaker, if you're also a native English speaker, can really make things easier if the work is complex. Those are a few things that are super helpful. The second thing would be asking custom questions. So when a freelancer goes to apply, you can include some bonus questions they have to answer to kind of get in touch with you. And I recommend asking questions that, based on whatever the answer is, it's going to give you a good sense of, is this person really reading what you need help with and able to put together a thoughtful, meaningful response. And then lastly, a bit of intuition. So not everyone's very intuitive, but I would consider myself as someone who very much trusts my gut. You do your best from a logical kind of due diligence standpoint with some of these things I just mentioned, and you combine that with some intuition. Have a conversation, have a call with someone. Who do you vibe with? Who do you feel is the best fit? Between just doing these few things, there's way more you can get into with hiring best practices in this little short excerpt of ideas I've just shared. But if you just start with these things, you'll be in much better shape than just winging it.
Right. So if I'm a freelancer and I'm thinking, well, I'm really good at Linux server administration, or I'm really good with Photoshop, or I'm a great writer, or, well, I love being on the phone talking to people, so I could be outbound sales, inbound sales, that sort of thing. What are some of the suggestions for them? Like, you've talked already a little bit about making sure your profile is done correctly and you've got a picture. Like, boy, if you don't have a picture up, like, what are you
doing, right?
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Like, even and it just happened to me the other day. Someone wanted to become my friend on Facebook and there was like no picture. And I thought, I didn't even think about it. I was just like, delete, like, forget it. If you can't put a picture up so I can see what you look like, then how can we be friends on Facebook? Or and when we work with people, we do want to be able to have an idea of who they are, what they look for, and everything else, because work is just not creating the task. It's also a relationship.
Absolutely. So I kind of break it into four areas. So obviously we're just chatting for a short while today. So basically, if people get one takeaway and they're listening and thinking about getting on to using Upwork, then you want to have a strategy with these four areas I'm about to list here. Because if you don't and you kind of just go at it, some people have been successful without having a strategy, but the vast majority of people, in my experience, will kind of get stuck. They'll stumble, it won't work as smoothly as they want, and they'll often burn out or give up before they actually get to that point where they've earned their first client or made their first, $10,000 or whatever it is. So the four areas are, first up is crafting your profile based on what's working for top performers in your niche. Second one is automating notifications for ideal jobs. Okay, we don't want to manually look for jobs, and we don't want to apply for jobs when it's convenient for us. We want this process to be automated, and we want to be able to apply first when a job actually gets posted.
Wow.
Third is sending proposals. You need to learn how to send a relatively custom tailored proposal in about 3 to 5 minutes. That's what I typically tell my clients and students and work on them with. 3 to 5 minutes is the window you want to aim for to send a good quality proposal that is custom tailored, that evokes a response. So when a potential client reads your proposal, which is just a message of you saying, hey, this is why I'm a good fit to help you, whatever you write needs to make them feel, yes, this person has actually read what I need help with, and I do feel like it would be worth chatting a bit more to find out if we will be perfect to support each other. So this is the third area, custom tailored, time efficient proposals. And then the last area, the fourth one, is sales calls. So that's just, you can call it something else if you want, but the reality is if you're getting on a call to potentially work with someone,
Right.
that's a sales call. You got to sell yourself. You don't
That's
have
right.
to label it as that in your mind. But if you just show up and wing the call, you could do fine. If you bring a little bit of strategy into it and make sure you're asking the right questions and effectively communicating, your pricing, when you can start, and other subtleties that clients absolutely want to hear to feel comfortable saying yes, well, then you'll get a lot more people saying yes more often. And so from a zoomed out perspective, don't just jump on this platform or any other remote work platform and fill things out to the best of your ability and try using it to the best of your ability. Come up with a strategy, whether that's through internet research, or maybe we're going to talk a bit more today about some of the things they can do. You got to bring a little bit of an intelligent approach, because there's lots of work for you there. There's lots of well-paid, awesome clients on remote work platforms like Upwork, and there's lots of freelancers. So the way you're going to stand out is by putting effort into your approach to using the platform. And so unsurprisingly, just like everything else in the world, you get what you put in. And if you're expecting an overnight magical 6-figure salary, that's not how it works. Does it have to take months or years though? Absolutely not. It can be what I see on average for people to kind of get up to, whatever, 20, 30, 40 hours a week. It can be done for sure with some consistent effort in the 3 to 6 weeks mark, which is that's pretty fast moving, I think, at least compared to traditional employment. So anyway, there's the answer to that question.
That's cool. And so Upwork is the largest one. It's been growing. Has there been any changes you've noticed over the last couple of years, or anything would used to be like this and now it's a little bit different? Or so people that maybe had been thinking about Upwork 3 or 4 years ago and decided against it might want to consider because it's changed?
Yeah. So in general, they've been growing. So the number of freelancers and businesses using it has been increasing. They are always investing quite a bit of time and energy into updating, how profiles are displayed and the features of the platform, ultimately just to make it easier to communicate, to get paid, to find the right person to hire or to work with. They're just making it better and better all the time. Some specific examples they've changed recently. One is it used to be more or less free to submit a proposal. And now it'll cost you maybe, up to 50 cents or something to send a message. And a lot of people were grumbling about this when they implemented it, but on a monthly basis, you might spend, $10 to $20 to reach out to businesses you want to work with. If you land one client, it should definitely be paying for that and a lot more. But what it really did was made it so that certain individuals from certain places weren't spamming proposals anymore because they had nothing to lose. And now that it costs money to submit proposals, well, instead of a business owner having to review, 50 proposals, maybe they're only looking at 20. And so your chances are much better when you're not part of a giant pile. Now, for people who are listening, though, 1 in 20 still might sound like terrible odds, and it would be if you were just 1 in 20. But if you remember back what I said quickly before, it was about how can I be the first person to apply, for example, combined with some other strategies. So in reality, you don't end up being 1 in 20. You end up being first out of 3 or 4 candidates that are actually appropriate. And so first out of 3, first out of 4, that's pretty good. And again, proposals, 3 to 5 minutes. Okay. So you don't have to spend a ton of time to send maybe 4 proposals, and you only have to get 1 out of those 4. So the math is there, but it takes some effort to learn how to send a proposal quickly instead of obsessively spell checking and grammar checking something for 15 plus minutes, which is certainly what I did when I started and what most people do, I find as well.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing like having a template and then adjusting it for the individual.
100 times, right? So
yeah. And Stan from Kenya. Hey, Stan, good to see you again.
Awesome.
Stan and I had coffee in Mombasa.
Very cool.
I think it was a couple years ago now. Time just sort of flies. So let's talk a little bit about traveling, because I know for me, when this whole shutdown thing occurred, and then I started thinking about it, this huge fear came up, and I thought, I'm not going to be able to go to Argentina or South Africa or India anymore. And then I thought, for 10,000 years, people have been moving all over the world. It's not going to stop now because of one little disease. But where do you kind of see the freelancing, the digital nomad lifestyle going when things kind of, let's just say, settle down? I don't know if they'll go back to what they were, but
in general, just massively growing. So even before all this COVID craziness was happening, this trend of remote work. So whether that's traditional employers allowing their employees to work from home more often, or people just totally phasing out offices in general, or co-working spaces, which are literally like physical spaces anyone can just go to have a desk and fast Wi-Fi to work at. All of these things have been in the background for the last, 10, 15 years, rapidly growing. Like we're kind of seeing this hockey stick effect. And I think we're really still at like probably the beginning of it. It's really
the beginning of the hockey stick, but it's definitely going to go straight up.
It's going. It's steadily going. Like the shift into remote work and digital nomadism, it's happening quickly. And actually COVID is fuel. It's gasoline on the fire. It's absolutely an accelerator. The amount of people who are now working remotely because they've been forced to, or people who are unemployed who are looking for remote work, is higher than ever. And I think these kind of events are a reminder for everyone, just like you were saying, if you're a barber, well, you do want to have a little bit of a backup plan, because even if you don't subscribe to the fear or whatever's going on with COVID, whether that's appropriate or not, who's to say? It doesn't matter, because the reality is the world is kind of on pause. And so
nobody's coming to get a haircut.
Right. So your opinion, you're entitled to it, but it doesn't change the reality you're in. But what you do changes the reality you're in. So having remote work is a great way to address things like this. And I expect these things just to keep massively growing. In the infrastructure, so things like co-working space, Wi-Fi speed, mobile data, all the things that support remote workers and digital nomads, convenience-wise and price-wise and all these things, they're just going to keep growing is my expectation.
Right. Cool. I'm so happy to hear that. I agree. But I sit here and I think, oh dear. And like the co-working thing is really cool, right? Because there's all these little offices that you can go to. Like in Medellin, for example, there's probably 30.
Yeah.
And so you go to one and you spend a few days there, and then you go to another one, and so there's different people that you meet, there's different people that you interact, there's different environments, and it's just kind of fun. Whereas when you think about going for 40 years, 5 times a week to the exact same office, like
doesn't that fire you up?
Doesn't that fire you? Yeah. It's just like, and there's a huge movement now. There's 2 movements going on, I think. One is people who used to live in condos are like, I don't know if I want to go up and down the elevator with that guy anymore. And so they're kind of looking into like how, back into suburbia, houses, bigger spaces. And then there's the people that are living in, whether it's houses or not, they're big city, and they're thinking, well, like you said, I've been remote working now for 5 months. I don't actually need to, and my boss is not forcing me to come back to work, so I can continue. So why don't we move out into the countryside, or we move to the lake, or we move to, some other place where we want to live, as opposed to where we kind of have to live because it's close enough that I can get to work in a reasonable amount of time, and it's far enough away that I'm not paying the exorbitant rates of the downtown core areas normally, right? Yep. And so I think it's really gonna be kind of cool to see, because there's been this massive movement from the countryside over the last 200 or 300 years into the cities, and then from the city center into the suburbs, and now we might be seeing it move back into.
Very interesting. I haven't thought about it like that, and that excites me because my passion for nature is strong.
Yeah.
And I think so many people are missing out on the beauty of clean air and fresh water sources and all of this. And maybe that spread out will help connect more people with that. And that excites me.
Yeah, and if you think about, 100,000 people per square foot in these cities, and I'm obviously exaggerating a lot, and then all of a sudden now, I mean, how hard is that on the environment, the sewer
Yeah.
systems, all, the transportation, all that stuff. And then, like Tokyo, for example, they sell bottled air from Canada, right? So, so you're on the street, and some guys got, Canadian air, and they give them the yens, and they, because the air is so bad. So now all of a sudden, the Japanese countryside is beautiful, and instead of being packed in, you're spread out. I don't know if that'll happen in Japan or not. That's a different culture. But I know for like in Canada and where you are in Kelowna, just imagine that you could do everything you're doing and you're 20 miles out of town, and the road is good, the Wi-Fi is good, your water is good, your living things are all fine, and then you just come into town once a week or once a month to get your supplies, and you're able to wander around the woods, or and I guess you had said about different times of our lives. There was, in my 20s, I like to party with all my buddies and go to the lake and that sort of stuff. And now I'm in my 60s, and I just soon walk with one or two friends down by the creek as do anything, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right, so we're not going to argue on that. Remote work is
no
going
debate.
up.
I'm with you.
That's right. Yeah. If I was at my son's place in Mission, I'd get in the car and come up there, and we'd go for a bike ride, because you went on a pretty incredible bike ride outside of Kelowna, right?
That's right. I literally left from my front door and biked across BC to Nelson. So it was about 10 days and roughly 400 kilometers. It's called bikepacking. Wow. So it's backpacking combined with biking. And it was amazing. It was seriously one of the funnest things I've ever done. And I can absolutely tell you I will be biking around the world. So this is the first trip of many to come.
Now, near Kelowna, there are old railway bridges that were made out of wood. Now, I know that a few of them burnt down one of them burnt down a few years ago, but did you go over any of those?
Yeah, so we call those the trestles. And so if anyone's listening, you can kind of look those up. The KVR trestles, pretty beautiful. And they're actually really well maintained. So I think saying old bridges kind of is misleading. They look great. They're very sturdy, and they're huge, hundreds of feet tall. And you're kind of in the canyons and overlooking forest canopies. And that's like, that was day 2. And I wish I could say that was a highlight, but literally this route was just so incredibly beautiful the whole way that was just a blend of just the start of the adventure, really.
Right. Cool. Oh, that's good. And that's one of the reasons why we love digital nomad lifestyles, right? Because
yes.
You can go to different places, you can see different lifestyles, you can eat different types of food, different cultures, different people, and have these amazing experiences. And we always want to remind everybody there are a lot of amazing experiences in your backyard. And if you, if you've been to if you find out someone's talking about your state or your province or your country, and you go, I've never been there, that sounds really cool, then, take advantage of where you're at. And
especially right now, if, travel is so limited at the moment. I understand, not everyone lives in Canada, and I would say Canada is a really lucky country to live in and be in. But I think literally every other country I've been to, I've also found something worth exploring. And so if you can't go anywhere else, then yes, might as well start with the backyard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Awesome. Well, Robert, I'm really glad that we were able to reconnect, and it's been a couple years, and it's funny that we don't meet in Canada. we meet in Southeast Asia, but it's been really cool, and thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. And if someone wanted to know more about freelancing, and in particular being popular on Upwork, where should they go?
They can check out my personal website at robertocrook.com, and I see you've linked it there in the show comments and maybe in the show notes too. And I'd invite people to join my Facebook group, the Digital Nomads forum. It's a community with more than 13,000 remote workers and digital nomads, and it's all about just helping other people do this lifestyle. How do you find the work? How do you figure out the passport, the backpack, whatever it is? This group is there for everyone. And I've seen you in there participating quite a bit over the last little bit. I like it. I hope I see you in there some more too. And thanks for having me, Scott.
Yeah, my pleasure, Robert. I really like the Facebook group because it's a place where people can go and they can ask questions. And sometimes I have an experience that can help with the answer. And if I can share that and support everybody, then I'm happy to do that. And if you're looking at starting to travel the world, to see the different places, one of the reasons that I left, the main reason I left Canada when I left Canada was my youngest son bought a house, moved out. I moved everything into his house and I rented my house, and then I could go because I had no responsibilities. Yeah. But the second level of that was I was absolutely terrified that the Americans would go to war with North Korea or Iran. And because this was like towards the end of Obama's presidency, and they were all like at each other. And I thought, I got to get out and see the world before, and I'd seen lots of it before it blows up, right? And I was really worried. And then, of course, it just seemed like the last 3 years that there's not going to be like any big wars. And then I thought, and then as soon as I relax, COVID hits and everything shuts down. So now I'm back at that same, like, I got to go. And like when we can travel, safely and securely, then I have a couple bucket list items that were kind of like,
you got to get to them before COVID too, right?
Exactly, right. Southern Africa, and I want to go to Victoria Falls, and then there's a big one near Uruguay and Paraguay and Argentina and Brazil. I never know the name of it. I want to go there too. So I don't know what it is about giant waterfalls. I've been to Niagara Falls a few times.
I love waterfalls.
Yeah,
no mystery. They're amazing.
They are, right? So I think it's really important that everyone sit down and say, you know what are the things that I used to say, this is how I used to make my decisions. If I'm 60 years old, on my rocking chair like grandpa, would I regret not having gone here or done this? Now I'm over 60, so it's like when I'm 80 years old, would I have to move the age up? But I think it's really important that people take the time and they say, you know what? I really have a strong desire to see the Taj Mahal or the Himalayas or the Alps or the Louvre in France. Or, I mean, there could be anything and the time to do it is now. And the problem that most people have is that I think we're sort of stuck. We're creatures of habit and we're sort of stuck in our ruts. And when you join something like the Digital Nomad Forum, you have an opportunity to see and be around people who are traveling or who have been traveling, and they can answer the questions. And I think if you really want to be good at something, then you have to surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do. It's not necessarily that they're all going to be your coaches or they're all going to be your mentors or that you're even going to talk to them. But when you see them say different things, and it's kind of like, oh, really cool. And one of the my last little part of this rant is I belong to Trusted House Sitters. One of the ways that I travel is I look after dogs and cats and horses and pigs and goats and chickens,
whatever animal,
whatever it is. And in exchange, they let me have a house to live in some place, right? And so you try living 6 weeks in Norway when you have to pay for the accommodation and the food. It's really hard. So, and it was free for me, so it was great. But what happens is they have a newsletter, and then in the newsletter they have all these pictures of all these places that need house sitters, and then you start clicking on the picture, and of course it opens up their profile page. And what is the profile page if not a sales letter to convince you that this is the most amazing place to go, right? So I keep opening up, and of course it kind of died for the last 5 months, but for the last 2 years I would open it up and there would be this nice beautiful picture of, say, someplace in France, and I have no desire to go to France, But
So
after
now
I
you
see
do.
the picture, exactly. Now it's like, I got to go there. Like, look how pretty it is. Because it's not just the house and it's not just the pets. Those are the big parts. But it's also, here's the view, here's the local village.
Yeah.
And you feel like you have this sort of insider view of these places. And it's just absolutely amazing. So
Yep.
if you're into traveling, then go to the Digital Nomad Forum, join up, tell Robert that Scott sent you, and be on your best behavior. Be on your best behavior. And
Leave your sales email funnel links for other groups.
that's right. That's right.
But I just wanted to add too, I'm also a member of Trusted House Sitters. I've done 1 or 2 sits. I've had really great experiences with it. I love the platform. It's just like all these other kind of whatever millennial platforms, if we want to call them, Airbnb, Uber,
Yes.
Upwork, Trusted House Sitters. They are connecting people in meaningful, awesome ways. And that's just another great example of a platform that I totally recommend for people.
Awesome. Thank you. So thank you, Robert, for joining me today. I'm going to have you come back again sometime.
Yes.
Or you can
When
tell
this
me, hey,
podcast is huge, because I think it's going to be. I know the way you work. You're a smart guy. This is going to be cool. I know this is. What episode is this? This is pretty new, right?
Actually, it started in 2005 in the spring.
But it wasn't.
Like, but I ignored it. You know, they say the
there must have
cobblers.
been a pause.
There's been it's 15 years old and there's been a 14-year, 11-month pause. But I've been doing all these podcasts for so many different people. And I thought, I know so many interesting people like yourself, and I should just start. And I enjoy our chats and I enjoy learning. So why don't I just start hosting this? And that's what I do. And this is my way of giving back to the podcasting community. And in this particular case, hopefully to the digital nomad community.
Absolutely.
And so, all right. So thank you, Robert, for being a part of this. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.